my class, my professor was evaluating a possible candidate for a future teaching position. She was female, and at the end when we were giving evaluations of her, everyone had positive feedback and said they felt as though they really learned from her compared to the other candidate who happened to be male. Our professor seemed to ignore our comments and seemed to favor the male candidate, even though no one really gave him a good evaluation. He said the woman candidate's lecture was not strong enough compared to the males.
And I've been blown away, honestly, at my time here in how educated and eloquent and inspiring, but also compassionate our female professors and lecturers are. I always feel like I can approach them. I feel like they challenge me as a student, but also as a person, to come at things with a greater sense of understanding and compassion for the issues that we discuss in class. I know that there are professors working on creating a better version of Title IX, a more sympathetic, a more effective way of dealing with these issues, but underneath the culture, the toxic male culture that is ingrained into Santa Clara's DNA, I think it's practically impossible to be real about instances of sexism, because I've had plenty of friends tell me that they feel like they have been sexually harassed or sexually discriminated against in class, or even racially discriminated, and they do not feel comfortable telling even their friends about it because they know that university won't handle it.
I was in a group project for a class, and I was trying to collaborate with my group members and give suggestions on what we could incorporate into our project. After several instances, I quickly came to the realization that one of the male group members was constantly rejecting my ideas when everyone else in the group was open to them. At one moment, he brought up a point, and when I tried to correct him, he got really defensive and brushed me off.
Recently, I noticed that I genuinely feel uncomfortable in class whenever the class is predominantly male. I take a lot of women and gender studies classes, and in these classes, I always feel comfortable speaking my mind, contributing to the conversation, because these subjects are very interesting to me. But if there's ever a time when there are more men than women, I've noticed that I don't contribute as much, even if I'm interested and engaged about the subject matter. And I think partly that's because I don't want them to judge me, and I feel like I'm viewed as lesser, or my opinion doesn't mean as much. And I also think that they don't welcome it. They're not interested in what I have to say.
And felt that a lot of the male students at SU don't care about what I have to say or don't value my opinions. They sort of dismiss my comments and move on. In a lot of my group conversations, there are guys who talk about sports and will completely leave me out of the conversation, either assuming I'm not interested or don't know anything about sports. It's funny to me because I've played sports my entire life and I'm currently working in the sports field.
I was in one of my classrooms when I overheard a male student talking about female students' experiences with sexism. He said they weren't that big of a deal.
Students, faculty, and just also the athletic department. The men's teams get a lot more fans than we do, even though a lot of people don't even really give us a chance to kind of show them what we can do. Also, just with like funding, gear, and opportunities, I think the men's teams are highly favored in that regard. And a specific example would just be for one of our games, we use it as like advertising to get tickets for the men's game against Gonzaga. And in order to get a ticket to the men's Gonzaga game, you must come to the women's basketball game and stay through the whole thing in order to redeem your ticket. And it's the one game all season that we definitely have the most fans, but it's kind of a consensus throughout the team that we don't particularly like that because they're not our true fans. They're honestly just coming just to get their men's tickets, and we find it a little disrespectful for our games to be advertised as an opportunity to go to a men's game when really it should be an opportunity to see us and see us perform and see what we can do and be supported, and not have it be about the men's team, because that game is about us. And especially this season, that game, it was a close game, came down to about 2 points. Very exciting, and a lot of students left in the last 5 minutes when it was a close game because they just did not care about the score. They just wanted to line up to get their men's tickets. And then, like, no disrespect to the men's team, but then they ended up being beat by 60 by Gonzaga. So honestly, the students would have gotten a better game watching us play.
I never hear about women's sports games. I only ever hear about male sports games. And then they did this whole marketing scheme for the men's basketball team, and it's honestly a little bit laughable, the production value that went into it, because it is so good. And these are college kids in these promos that look like they should be professional athletes. Whereas, where is that for the women's teams? Where is the awareness? When you go to women's soccer teams, there's probably like 15 people in the stands, and they actually win. Whereas the men's soccer team, they're always completely crowded, and they don't do that well.